Hello and welcome to part 2 of Vue JS Beginners to Advanced Interview Questions and Answers series. Let us start our session. First question in this session: what is VHTML directive in Vue? The VHTML directive in Vue is used to render raw HTML content between an HTML elements opening and closing tags inside the Vue app template. In the example code, you can see Vue data property called content that holds an HTML string is passed into the VHTML directive inside the Vue template section. Also, you can pass an HTML string directly into the VHTML directive. The difference between interpolation and VHTML directive in Vue is that interpolation ignores HTML tags and output HTML tags as plain text, while VHTML recognizes HTML tags. What is VON directive in Vue? The VON directive is used to attach event listeners to DOM elements. This is also called event binding. Using VON, we can respond to different user actions and DOM events like mouse click, key press, mouse over, mouse leave, form submissions, and so. You can use @ as a shorthand syntax for VON. What is variable $event in Vue? The special variable $event in Vue is used to access the native DOM event object from within an inline event handler. Using $event is required if you want to pass custom parameters along with the reference of the DOM event object from an inline event handler to the event handler function. What is this keyword in Vue? In Vue JS, this keyword refers to the current Vue instance or Vue component. This keyword can be used inside a Vue component's methods, computed properties, watchers, and lifecycle hooks like created and mounted to access its data properties, methods, computed properties, and so. In the code example, you can see how to use this keyword inside a Vue instance method to access a Vue property. What are event modifiers in Vue.js? Event modifiers can be used to control the browser default behavior to specific events like form submit, button click, mouse click, etc. Some examples of event modifiers are submit.prevent, which will prevent default form submission on submit button click, click.write, which can be used to execute a specific method upon right-clicking the mouse, keyUp.enter, which can be used to execute some method upon pressing the enter key. What is v1 directive in Vue.js? The v1 directive in Vue.js is a built-in directive used to render an element or component and its entire subtree only once. After the initial render, the element and its children become static content. That means they will not be re-rendered even if the reactive data they depend on changes. What is VIF directive in Vue JS? The VIF directive in Vue JS is used for conditional rendering. VIF can be used to conditionally render a block of content or an element based on whether a given expression evaluates to a truthy or falsy value. If the VIF expression evaluates to true, the associated element and its children are rendered into the document object model. And if the VIF expression evaluates to false, the associated element and its children are completely removed from the document object model. So this means they are not just hidden but really removed from the page structure. What is VELSE directive in Vue? The VELSE directive is used for conditional rendering in conjunction with VIF and VELSE if directives to render elements based on a condition. The VELSE directive acts as a fallback content block to be rendered if the preceding VIF or VELSE if conditions evaluates to false. The VELSE directive needs to be used on an element which is a direct neighbor of the element which has VIF. What is vShow directive in Vue? The vShow directive in Vue.js is used for conditionally toggling the visibility of an element based on the truthiness of an expression. If the expression evaluates to false, vShow sets the CSS display property of the element to none and hide it. If the expression is true, the element's default display value is restored and make it visible. Unlike VIF, which adds or removes elements from the DOM, vShow always renders the element and keeps it in the DOM. vShow only changes the element's visibility through CSS. What is difference between vShow and VIF directives in Vue? VIF and vShow directives differ in how they manipulate the document object model or DOM to show or hide an element. VIF always adds or removes elements from the DOM to show or hide the element. On the other hand, vShow always renders the element and keeps it inside the DOM. It only manipulates the element's visibility through CSS. vShow avoids the overhead of DOM manipulation and only changes a CSS property and is more efficient when an element needs to be toggled frequently. What is v4 directive in Vue? The v4 directive in Vue can be used to iterate through a collection or an array. Through this iteration process, it is possible to generate HTML elements corresponding to each item in the array. For example, v4 directive can be used for rendering a list of items corresponding to each element of an array or object by iterating through the array or object. In the example illustrated, you can see how to use v4 directive to iterate through an array and render an unordered list based on items inside the array. What is key attribute in Vue JS? The key attribute in Vue JS is a special Vue specific attribute. Key attribute is mainly used with v-for directive while iterating through an array or object to provide a unique identifier for each element in the iterated array. When a list rendered with v4 is modified, Vue's virtual DOM uses this unique identifier to efficiently determine which actual DOM elements need to be updated. In the example provided, you can see how to use key attribute in conjunction with v4 to assign a unique identifier for each element in the array iterated. I will wind up this session here. We will discuss interview questions on more Vue concepts in the next session. So I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.